in a matter of 60 days, I lost 2 companies and $500,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. I love helping entrepreneurs like really understand that they're the most powerful tool in their toolbox, right? Like you don't become a gold medalist because you get better at running. It's because you train yourself to become the best runner, right? Running isn't something you go get. It's something you make. Entrepreneurs don't recognize that they are in the top 1% of professional athletes in the world. We work harder than everybody.
Hey, George, how you doing? Welcome back to the show.
I am stoked to be back, my friend.
What is it, the third time now, isn't it? You've got to be our number one repeat offender.
I love it. I love it. That's like, those are the milestones I go for in life now. Like, that's how I win. I'm like, I want to be somebody's like 12th guest on their podcast. Like, I want to like make a home for myself.
Now, I actually want to repeat a little bit of the conversation we were having before we come on, because I think for a lot of people, they need to realize the power of what they got in their pocket. I was moaning at you because I had a massive tax bill. You were moaning because you'd been through some changes in your life. But with the rooms that we are in and the people we have on our Rolodex, we have a support structure and system that we never had when we were younger while we were building this up. That, as you quite rightly said, you can't fail when you've got those people. When did you realize that your room was so important?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Steve. If I'm going to answer it in full integrity, about 7 days ago.
Okay.
When I got a taste of it, I've had pockets of it over the years, but I didn't know how to recognize it. Like friends that, like yourself, where I'll lean in, I'll see you, I'll add some value, and then you'll throw out a, hey, if you need anything, let me know. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But underneath, I'm like, I actually really need something, but I'm afraid to ask or accept help. And so I'd say that like a couple of years ago, when business started feeling easy, I had recognized that I had let some people in and helped me. And so I started recognizing that I was good at accepting help, and I just started flexing that muscle. And over time, I just developed enough evidence, and it all kind of clicked the other day. I was just sitting there at my event, and I'm running my event, and people that like I've paid for mentorship are sitting in my room as a consumer of what I'm teaching. And it was a very humbling experience. But then I just looked at them and I was like, fuck, like they've got me, like I've got them, like we're good. And it just was like this moment of clarity for me that was like very freeing.
So I think you've hit on a number of things there. As entrepreneurs, as we grow up, we love the challenge. We love to accept that when things go wrong, it's our fault. When things go right, hey, it could never have gone right if it wasn't for us. And this bravado builds up. And look, both of us are getting, we're enjoying the latter part of our life. Mm-hmm. But when you suddenly start realizing that you can do more with support. Now, I mentioned earlier, just to make it clear and be very transparent, I sold a company, celebrated for 24 hours, then realized that there's ways to sell companies. And the company that I sold had actually unleashed a mammoth tax bill that what I sold the company for covered a third of my tax bill. And I was like, as I mentioned to you, crying in my beer going, oh, woe is me, until you realize that the room you are in can help you. And now I've got people constructing things. They've been helping me with things, directing me to things. And I'm over half of it gone already in the space of like 4 weeks.
Yep.
And it's when you actually dare to reach out to your circle and go, hey, I'm in need of help now, that you suddenly realize those people stand up and go, right, okay, got your back. What's the shit? What's the issue? Mm-hmm. It's very tough, though, as entrepreneurs to do that, though, isn't it?
It was until I recognized that it was the actually only way to win the game. And when that stark reality hit me, I had to eat some humble pie. But then in reflection, I realized like every key moment of my life, every win I've ever had from the earliest memory, I think about the success and then I think about who was around me. And I would never have achieved any of them without the people that were around me. And as an entrepreneur, what it took me a while to realize, Steve, is that in the very early stages, I had a community. I just didn't know how to insert myself into it, right? I didn't think I had a seat at the table. I didn't think I had anything in common with these people. And now in the latter part of our lives, like if you combine your and my Rolodex on our iPhones, that would be an interesting podcast series if we just started calling who's in our phones, right?
That should be a series. Just suddenly start just doing like phone roulette. Just like, it's John. Hey, John. Yes. Yeah, that'd be a good show. No. There is no technical difficulty here, but I am jumping in to give you a PSA. If you like what you're hearing, if it's helping you, if it's benefiting you, I just want to let you know that there may be other ways that I can help you. Jump over to stevedsims.com, learn about my speakeasies, learn about my Sims distillery, my coaching, any way that can help you. But again, if it helps you, great. If not, then listen to this podcast and at minimum, action what you're doing. Anyway, I'm going to get you back to your usual showing. Enjoy the rest of the show. Bye for now.
But like you think about it on paper and you look at us, like from you and your background in London and me and homelessness and the Marine Corps, and then you open up our Rolodex and you recognize that our phones are loaded with billionaires and centimillionaires and people who have changed the world, but they're our friends because they're no different than we are. And they've always been there. And I think the success of entrepreneurship for me boils down to recognizing that we're all human beings and we're choosing to play a game. And we can play that game together and everybody wins, but we have to remember that we're people and relationships always come first. Like this is the hill I'm going to die on. It's why I trademarked the phrase relationships beat algorithms, man. Like that's the only thing that matters. Everything in my business, my life, my family, my friendships, my successes, my recoveries, picking me up when I've lost, I can pinpoint every single one of them to a relationship with people. And at the end of the day, I think it's truly the only currency that matters. And I'm like so bullish on it now because the amount of evidence I have in my life, I can't believe anything else to be true anymore.
I can have this conversation with you because you've always been very transparent. You've always been very vulnerable. You've always worn your problems clearly on your t-shirt and gone, hey, this shit's happening. That shit's happening. And you've always been very, very vocal of it, even down to kind of like, you know, adopting your colors and your glasses. And we've had that conversation on a past episode. So Google him on one of our past podcasts if you want to hear the story behind the pink glasses. But in today's world, we still look at vulnerability as a weakness.
Yep.
And there's me and you who'll go toe to toe. We'll walk in a bar and enjoy a bar fight if it needs to be. Yep. But you'll still talk about vulnerability. Oh, you know, look at the softies. You know, they need a safe space. Why are we terrified of being vulnerable? When we know, when we've been through it, let's be blunt. Once we've been through it, we know it's the most powerful moment. But why are we so scared of it?
Yeah, I love this question because this was the wall that I bashed my face against for 34 years of my life. And ultimately, in reflection of the question, I was afraid of being seen for who I truly was because I hadn't accepted myself. So everybody else's vulnerability challenged my own truth. So when somebody else would cry in front of me, it would make me see where I'm not crying and I'm not acknowledging my pain and my feelings. And it was a very painful mirror. And it's one of those drugs that until you taste what's on the other side of like radical honesty, you have no idea what that white lightning feels like. But once you taste it, you can't ever go back. And it's in those moments where you like have that thing to say or that thing that goes against the norm and you just choose to be like, hey, I don't want to do that, or that doesn't feel right, or no, it's not a good fucking morning, but I'm still choosing to be here. But let's not pretend that it's rainbows and unicorns every day. And I just think the more that you practice it, the more open people become to it. But for me, it was challenging. I would have friends get vulnerable with me, and even clients would get vulnerable with me, and it would throw my walls up. And like in looking back at it, it's because I hadn't been willing to sit with the fact that like, you don't just get to be healed by saying you're healed. Like you don't get to go through 35 years of trauma and then be like, hey, I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle and Atomic Habits. And so like, I'm good. Like life is great. Right. And so, you know, I think that's how I would answer that because that's what it was like for me.
What are you working on now that's really pumping you up?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I am just stoked about right now, like my podcast and my events. Like I have an itch, like, and what I do, like, I just love people so much. And so every one of my business partners, every one of my coaching clients, every one of my team, I've told them all the same thing all year, this year, next year. put me in front of as many people as you can. I don't care if they pay. I don't care if it's free. If it's a room that's there, if you make a room, I don't give a shit. I just want you to stick a quarter in me as much as possible for like the next 2 years. And that is exciting to me. Like the podcast, I'm flying people into Montana now to do them all in person. And so I'm just like really ready to amplify all this stuff that I've been working on and teaching for the years, because the entrepreneurs that have been listening for free have been getting massive results. And I'm like, all right, everybody, it's kind of time to change marketing. And I'm pretty fucking fired up about that.
Now, how long have you been running your podcast? Because you've been doing your podcast for a long time. I know way longer than me.
So I started the podcast in May of 2020. So I started it right after COVID, nixed 3 of my businesses and cost me $500,000 a month. And I sat with it and I was like, you know what, let me launch the one thing that won't make me money, but it feels like the right thing to do. And you know, it was one of those decisions, like I was even talking about a minute ago, where I truly had to make for myself. And now we're 375 episodes in, and it's it's probably one of my legacy projects for my life. Like I don't envision myself ever stopping it. Like I just love talking to my friends and you and people and sharing life stories and experiences. And I can single-handedly say it was probably the best thing I've ever done. And I didn't even look. Here's the craziest thing, and I'm glad I didn't look. For the first 2 years, I never looked at downloads. And I'm glad, because I only had like 10 or 15 an episode for like the first 200 fucking episodes. And I was like, part of me, Steve, I was a little hurt. I'm like, do you guys know who I am? Like, are you serious right now? All right, fine. I'll just keep going on all my friends' podcasts. And then, you know, like a year, 2.5, I looked and I was like, oh shit, there's a lot of people listening to this. And I looked back and I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't look, because I probably would have quit. But I was so unattached to the outcome. I just kept producing content, and then a few episodes made it pop.
Do you know, the funny thing was, I actually thought you were doing it a lot longer than that. I think because I've been watching it and consuming it, I just thought it was like a 2015 kind of thing, but only 2020. Wow. Well, that's a good emphasis on the impact you have. Now, you run a lot of events, and you've just come off of your event with in Austin, your latest event. So you mentioned about bringing people into your studio to do live podcasts. You like doing live events. Why is live so important to you now? Because I know you're a people person, but why is live so important to you and for growing your impact?
Yeah. This is a really, really good question. And I've thought about this a lot. And my answer, because my team actually asked me the same question. And the difference between remote and in person is compression. The amount of compression that can be maintained in an in-person environment or container, right? Like you can have a 1-hour meeting on Zoom, you can do a podcast on Zoom, but the level of presence and intensity when you take that same 1-hour meeting or podcast and put it in person amplifies immensely. Like the ground that is covered because of the trust and the 93% of nonverbal communication and the idiosyncrasies of the energy exchange. And so in the work that I do, which is I love helping entrepreneurs like really understand that they're the most powerful tool in their toolbox, right? Like you don't become a gold medalist because you get better at running. It's because you train yourself to become the best runner, right? Running isn't something you go get, it's something you make. And in that, you know, we work a lot on strategies and tactics and customer journey, but we also work on the entrepreneur of like, hey, if you want to do breath work, come do breath work with us, right? If you want to learn how to be 100% responsible and lead a team, here's how you do it. And the amount of compression that we can get when you have like energy and other people in the same boats in different businesses at different levels of life, and they're all sharing experiences together and co-creating. It's like people describe it after a 3-day event, which I charge $500 a ticket. They literally describe it like a 20-year entrepreneurship MBA in 3 days. And they're like, I don't remember a word that you said. I didn't write anything down, but I'm doing everything differently in my business and it's working. And I was like, perfect. Welcome to my cult. You are officially indoctrinated. Now go recruit new people.
You've had some downtimes. You've had some rough ones. Throw a couple of those dark chapters at us, because it's very easy. It's very easy. I was talking to my son, and my son's 18 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
But in his earlier ages, I had some dark times. I had some dark times before him, and so the kids don't really see. And he made a comment the other day about, well, you've always had it, and that's always funny because they see that, but they don't always see the shit. And especially when they're young, they don't notice it. My eldest, Henry, 25, he's seen some of the shit and the rip-offs and the lawsuits and those kind of crap things that come at entrepreneurs for seemingly no reason. But give us a couple of your dark chapters.
Yeah, I have a couple of dark chapters to share in a lesson, in a reflection recently. So I'll paint the picture from recent to furthest. And so recent, actually, as of today, I am 53 pounds lighter than I was 60 days ago. And so 60 days ago, I got clarity on a challenge that's been arising for 7 years that I'm not speaking about yet. That was a culmination point. Now, go back to March of 2020. In a matter of 60 days, I lost 2 companies and $500,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue within 60 days. My supplement companies are doing $20,000 to $30,000 a day. Amazon shut down, warehouses shut down, 3PL shut down. We bled out of cash. I was running a mastermind of all Amazon businesses with 80 entrepreneurs paying $3,000 to $7,000 a month. About 80% of them lost their companies, so they couldn't afford to be in the mastermind. So then I had to sunset the mastermind. And so that was in March of 2020. I was living in my second home that I just built on the mountain, multi-million-dollar condo, 3 new cars, 2 new horses, investing across the board, and then everything was taken away. And then I had $2.5 million under consulting contracts that got pulled. And that happened in March of 2020. And so I made a rule with myself that I couldn't do anything until I had clarity. So I went hiking every day alone. It took 37 days. And on day 37, I decided to launch the podcast, Steve. And I started from zero. I had enough cash and I made it down to 3 weeks left before I would have ran dry. And I relaunched everything from the ground up with the podcast. And so what everybody sees right now is all from March of 2020 until today, with 6 new companies that I own, the podcast, the events, the consulting business, and all my new one-on-one coaching. And then prior to that, in November of 2016, my wife was 8 months pregnant and we were 3 weeks away from bankruptcy. And I had driven Civilized Caveman from 7 figures into the negative territory. And so I went to the jungle, spent 7 days alone, and decided to give away the company. And 3 weeks later, I became a consultant. And 9 months later, I was one of the highest paid digital marketing consultants in the world. And that was in 2016.
Wow. So you've had a little bit of a, and there's a future discussion or a future revelation of what this clarity is that you've just gone through. Yeah. So you've been very busy. Once someone gets that, I mentioned that, when I got the tax bill, I had a little sob in my beer. I didn't have a sob in my beer, but I certainly sat there on the couch and went, fuck, what am I going to do? And certainly hit a bomb. I've always believed that alcohol is an amplification of the mood you're in. If you're depressed, alcohol is going to make you more depressed. So when I'm depressed, I never touch the alcohol because that's
smart
stupid.
Move.
And when I'm happy, I'll maybe have 2 or 3 and then that's it. So I'm not as much as my brand has me pegged that I'm always drinking, I'm not actually doing that. But it was a very tough moment when I got that. But then something clicks in you, doesn't it? Something goes, all right, get over the pity party now. Let's get going. When you have that moment and those things come at you, how important is it for you to be the first one to actually recognize where you are before you can actually lean out to your people and your circle to go, right, need help.
Yep. So important to the point that there are 2 books that I've memorized and I have 3 models that I've built into my life to ensure that every time I get punched in the face, the only thing I'm allowed to do is get clarity first before I reach out so that I know which direction I'm going in. And so, in what you're speaking about, when I think back at every loss that I've ever had in business, it was always because I got hit with one of those things, the big tax bill, the number 1 client leaving, ad account being shut down, and immediately reacted and took action from a place of emotion. And every time I did that, it led to permanent damage that was unrecoverable. And it took me a couple of years to recognize that irregardless of the circumstance, no matter how hard I get punched in the face, at some point I'm going to have to look at the field in front of me and see what my options are. But I can't see those options when I'm emotional, when I'm upset. And so now I actually built a model for my own team and my clients I call the SOS model. And it's 3 circles. The inner one is called inner tools. The next one is called inner circle. And the last one is called outer circle. And the inner tools are anything you can do by yourself that pattern interrupts your mood. Dancing, music, riding a motorcycle, working out, having sex, yelling, walking, going out in nature. You pick it, right? Anything that resets your nervous system, that helps you recognize that you're getting punched in the face, but there's not another punch coming and it's going to hurt, and it hurts, and you have to acknowledge the hurt, right? It doesn't make it go away. Like I just got hit with a lawsuit from Nerf 7 months ago that was costing us $75,000 a week. That fucking hurt bad. But irregardless of how bad it hurt, we still had to see what our options were. And so I use my inner tools. So when I can't regulate my nervous system, when I'm thinking emotionally, I go right to those inner tools. If those inner tools don't work, I then immediately call somebody in my inner circle. And so I have 9 people in my inner circle. They're the top 9 pinned on my messages on my iPhone. And these people all know who they are in my life. And so if I ever call them, I'm like, hey, I need you for an inner circle moment. I'm having some trouble. They help ground me and get me clear on my next step. And then the outer circle is my resources and tools, like my attorneys, my friends, you, people that I might have a connection to me. And so my inner circle helps get clarity, and then I take action on that outer circle. So I became obsessed about this. And then Scott Carney actually wrote a book about this called The Wedge. And that period when you get massively triggered, you can actually train your central nervous system, that muscle, to pause your autonomic nervous system. This is why breath work and cold therapy is so powerful for people, and they can navigate stress. And what I started to recognize is that in my businesses, I just kept waiting for the world to punch me in the face, pretending it wasn't going to come. And then once it happened a few times, I was like, how about I just punch myself in the face every day and see if I can break it? Because I know it's coming. Right. And so if I know I'm going to lose my CEO, like what's my tertiary plan? So when it happens, I'm not in shock and I have something in background, right? I know I'm going to lose my favorite one-on-one client, even though they've been with me for 2 years. At some point, my fucking shtick is up. And that's a lot of money that's not coming into my account every day. But I know that's going to happen. So to put my blinders on as an entrepreneur and be like, no, it's all perfect. My clients are going to stay forever. My company's going to work perfect. Every employee I hire is going to do their job and they're never going to lie. No, it's just pretending. And so I'd rather train knowing it's going to come. And so I just take this proactive approach every day, and I make myself very uncomfortable, and I try to stretch myself and do things that suck. And I challenge my team to challenge me, and we break things intentionally. And then we put them back together faster. And I think that now at this point in my life, Steve, I've recognized that the only way that I'm going to win is if I hit base hits every day. And so if there's anything getting in the way of me swinging, I'm getting it the fuck out of my way. And my emotions need to be separated, because I am the MVP quarterback, but I'm also the coach. And so I have to be able to recognize when I'm performing, but when I have to look at my performance objectively and say, hey, I need to shift this. It's time to get back to work. Oh, time to get back on client calls. Nope, my team needs a little bit more leadership. Oh, I guess I'm a rookie again. Let's go launch the book from scratch, right? And I think I've just truly fallen in love with the process at this point. So that's kind of how I navigate it now.
Socially, we don't like revealing any pain. But I don't know of any entrepreneur, and I'm not talking about the entrepreneurs. I'm not talking about those that are looking at Jeff Bezos and going, "Oh my God, I'm going to be an entrepreneur because of that." I'm talking about the real ones, our friends. And I don't know a single entrepreneur that's not been laughed at, ridiculed, fucked over, sued, borderline bankrupt, all of the things.
Yep.
And everyone out there is like, oh my God, I hope those things don't happen to me. I've also never met an entrepreneur, again, within our circle, that hasn't become stronger because of that.
1000%, man.
So I know we need that pain to grow, but it's coming. How do you prepare people that go, oh, I love your, because they look at your life, they look at my life, and they go, oh my God, I want a piece of that. How do you prepare people to go, hey, you're about to go through a shitstorm of broken glass roads with no shoes on. Smile while you do it. How do you prepare people?
Yeah, God, that's such a good question. I think first part, The first preparation is first having an integrous look at if you really want the life that you see us living. Because the delusion that that life is what you want is going to cause dissonance from the get-go. Because one of the reasons I'm so open and so transparent about the work that we do and the challenges that we're in is that you have to recognize that at the levels of entrepreneurship that you're at, the challenges that you're having are going to remain, except they amplify in intensity and pain. And so at every level of your business, when those situations arise, your willingness to stay calm and clear is increasing your capacity to prep you for the next level of revenue. And so what I find really, really interesting is that entrepreneurs don't recognize that they are in the top 1% of professional athletes in the world. We work harder than everybody. We have to find answers, create solutions, solve challenges, and we drive an F1 race car, and yet we get pissed that it doesn't perform, but yet we don't sleep, we don't eat, we don't take care of ourselves, and we put shit in our gas tank, and then we expect it to run because we don't understand that we're an effective tool. And so we keep looking at these lives that we want, while literally not acknowledging that we're sacrificing ourselves and the things that would actually make us the revenue. Because I will tell you right now, for anybody listening to this, and I don't give a fuck who you are, there's been a moment in your life when you felt the world was over and you went for a workout or went to the gym, and 2 minutes in, you had more clarity than you've ever had in your life and your emotions were regulated, right? You go to the gym and you're like, I know this is going to hurt because it's going to make me stronger. It's going to make me faster. It's going to make my muscles there. You run because you want to run a longer distance, but you have to push yourself through pain to get there. And the beautiful thing about the human body is that if you don't actually increase its resistance, it atrophies. If you only walk a mile a day at the same pace for a year, you actually get weaker than if you get stronger. And so I just find it convenient that all these things that we say are important in our life, we're willing to play the game, but the game that literally funds our life and gives us rules and things that we can live by, which is entrepreneurship, we get pissed about the rules and we just don't have the behaviors to play the game. So it's a game. You're going to get tackled. You're going to get fucking sacked. You're going to lose the Super Bowl. So when you get honest about what life really looks like, you have to recognize that for all the highlights that you see, there's 99 punches to the face. You have to love getting punched in the face more than you love having your hand raised in the end, or you're guaranteed to lose. But when you understand the reality of entrepreneurship, it becomes fun. Because when you know somebody's going to hit you, but it won't knock you over, the only thing you can do is smile because they can't touch you. And when you get that, you practice that. That's why you put yourself in hard situations. That's why you do the video that you were scared to do. That's why you give the keynote that you've been petrified to say. That's why you answer the question the way that you want to, not the way that you think everybody should. One of the reasons you're resilient is because you're willing to get smashed in the face and you take it as a learning lesson, just like the friend circle that Steve references. They're not successful because they've had more wins than you. They're successful because they've been punched in the face more times than you and stood there with a smile and didn't get out of the field. And the moment you recognize what it truly is, you recognize that your ability to win the game is how you choose to see the game that you're playing. And if you hate the game that fills your bank account, you will never extract the value out of the game. You have to love the game and love the process to get the maximum value out of the game. That's the difference between Tom Brady and all the other quarterbacks that you can't name. He doesn't give a fuck about the paycheck. He loves football. If you don't have that, you won't win as an entrepreneur. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Sorry, I got a little ranty on that one, Steve.
I like that. Where can people follow you?
Yeah. The best place for my slice of crazy is my podcast. It's called The Mind of George Show, everywhere podcasts are spread. So my mind belongs in a straitjacket. So I share the safest parts with you on The Mind of George Show. But everything I have is at mindofgeorge.com. Steve will tell you everything I teach, I basically give away for free. My podcast is a masterclass in building a 7-figure business as an entrepreneur. And so if I can help in any way, if I can support you in any way, if you have any questions, shoot me a DM. You will get a video response from me, I promise. And I'm going to go back to sticking my bald head stickers on things like Steve and Joe taught me how to do. So get ready for it.
George, it's been a pleasure to have you back on this show. I love the spirit. Man. I love the enthusiasm. I wish you all the best. I can't wait until our paths cross again.
Yeah, man, I'm going to have to get you back on the show, but I'm going to have to fly out and see you. We'll have to do it in person.
We will do it in person. Look after yourself, pal. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, I hope you liked that episode of the Art of Making Things Happen podcast. And remember, these are done for you. If you like them, subscribe, share them around. But if you don't like them, send me an email to ask@stevedsims.com and you can tell me what I need to do to make this the most dynamic podcast you listen to. Anyway, make sure whatever you learned from the last podcast, you actually do something with. Without action, it's just a bunch of people blowing air. Have a good time. Until next time. Bye.